certain things, you'll get X amount result every single time, like clockwork. If you do this, you'll get this. If you do this, you'll get this. But as an entrepreneur, it's a totally different ballgame. Like the world is so foreign to what you've been conditioned your entire life. Like your subconscious mind has been programmed for 12 or 15 years to have this one way of thinking. And all of a sudden you go out into the entrepreneurial world, it's a completely different game. And it took me a few years of really messing up, like I said, to just figure out like this isn't going to happen like I thought it was going to happen, and I have to try some other different shit if I want to be successful in it. And I think most people have that learning curve too, and some people never make it. Some people will never get past that, but the successful entrepreneurs, I think they recognize that right away, and the faster they can recognize it, the sooner they'll see success.
And was there a specific point where you were like, okay, all right, I'm going to be all right. I keep doing this. I don't have to go out and start trying to figure out my career or anything like that. This is what I'm going to do.
I'd say around the time of the podcast that came out, like I was starting to maybe like a 6 months to a year into the podcast, and I started building it up and getting some sponsors and stuff like that. Like I was still bartending around that time anyways, full time, just to support myself. Like some people will just try to quit and jump all in on the entrepreneurial thing, but they'll have no money and they're living, paycheck to paycheck, or they won't have anything coming in. Like it's a real struggle. But I think like Gary Vee says it a lot. You have to really hustle 100%, but you have to have a side job to have that income to support yourself, so you can have the hustle to build up the thing that you really want. So that's what I was doing for a while. But around that time, I'd say maybe 6 months to a year into it, I started getting some sponsorships, the coaching that I was doing, like more confidence coaching as opposed to dating coaching at that time. But the confidence stuff and the coaching programs that I had at the time, like it wasn't doing great, but it was doing enough to show me that if I kept doing this type of stuff, I could really make good money going forward if I did it right and just kind of put the time in.
Nice. And so now you're at this point. I mean, you've interviewed a great list of people. You've been able to get guests to the show. You've been able to build your brand out. At this point, what's your day like? So how are you structuring your day? How are you figuring out what you want to spend your time on? So
the cool thing, probably about a year or so ago, I started developing this little strategy. I might have heard something similar to it somewhere else, but I don't think anyone did it exactly the way I did it. But I just kind of fell upon it one night before bed. I was just writing down some stuff, and then I ended up writing down the list of shit that I wanted to do the next day, just like bullet points of like structuring out my day. So I'll actually, like we think we have a lot more time than we actually really do, like hours in a day. If you think about it, like there's 24 hours in a day, and then you sleep, say about 8 hours, like an 8 hour, period of sleep. So you knock off 8 hours right off the bat, that's 16 hours. And then you have like the stuff that like, the going to the bathroom shit, the eating shit, the making food, the washing your lawn, like the little chores and stuff. So you take away a couple hours right there every single day, and you're left with like 14 hours or so, maybe 13 hours. And then, you factor in other stuff, like you got to drive to work. You got to, go here, you got to go there. You got to do a couple extra errands. There's a couple extra hours taken away. And then you add in the gym, 2 hours to the gym, like half hour there, half hour back, maybe an hour of hard work. You're left with maybe 10 hours a day. And then you actually start to like chip away at it. You really only see that you have maybe 8 to 10 hours of like work that you can put in a day. And that's why a lot of people don't get enough done, because they don't realize that their day is a lot of it's kind of wasted away on other stuff. And then they get distracted and they go on social media, Instagram, that they're kind of doing like stupid shit throughout the day, and they're filling that extra time, that precious time that we have, the little bit of it we have, and it's going away. So I started structuring my days out and actually writing the most important things that I wanted to get done, just in bullet points. Like it was nothing like a whole thing, just reminding myself of what it was that I wanted to do, and keeping it pretty simple, like maybe 3 or 4 things that I really wanted to do, and then a couple other things that I would try to do. And now next to those things, I'd put the amount of time approximately that it would take, or that I would want to spend on something. Like for the book, for instance, like 6 months ago, actually more like a year ago when I was writing the book, I'd put like work on book, 2 hours. And then next to that, it would be something else like podcast, like interview podcasts or podcast interviews for the day, like 2.5 hours or whatever it is. Like, so there's different things throughout the day, and I'll make sure I fill in those times. So I'm having my thing comes out to like 14 hours, and I'm filling up those 14 hours with things. And then of course, a couple of those things are like chores and stuff, but I'm making sure that I'm not like doing a ton or trying to do a ton of stuff, but just filling it in just right so that I know when I wake up in the morning, I can look at that list and see exactly what I want to do. There's no time wasted. Like, of course, I'll go to the bathroom and I'll go on Instagram or, do stupid stuff like that. Like where I can waste a couple minutes, I give myself a little bit of freedom to do that, but it's mostly just sticking to the list and being like productive to what I want to do. And honestly, by doing this little strategy, I'm probably 3 times more productive than I was like 2 or 3 years ago.
Well, that's so important because I think a lot of people, particularly if you're an entrepreneur and you are in charge of your day, you don't have anybody looking over your shoulder telling you exactly what to do. It's really important that you've already decided what you're going to do and what you're going to prioritize. And you kind of have to do that before you're in the throes and passions of your day. Because if you're allowing emotion to run through you and you're allowing your emotions to guide what you're going to work on at that point, you could find yourself just putting out fires all day long or spending time on shit that maybe you're worried about, but maybe isn't that important to actually moving you forward.
Yeah. So 2 other things too related to that. The first thing is you actually, like when you're doing it the night before, you're doing like a brainstorm right before bed too. I feel like you're the most creative, like your mind works the best. For me, it is that way anyways. And I think for a lot of people, it's a very creative type of like thinking. So you're getting all the stuff out the next day. Your mind is working pretty sharply in terms of creativity. And you're cutting out all the nonsense. Like you said, there's not like a lot of time wasted or thinking about what you want to do when you wake up the next day. Like, oh, maybe I should do this, or maybe I should do the book. Maybe I should do the podcast stuff. Maybe I should go on the website. Like you're not we actually waste a lot of time just thinking about what we want to do. At least I know in my day, a couple of years ago, it was a lot of that. Like there was a lot of just thinking like, maybe I should do this, or, jumping around doing the ADD thing where you have like 30 tabs up and you don't know what you want to work on.
Yeah.
And then the other thing too, related to productivity, which kind of just I thought of is I cut out a lot of stuff that wasn't actually leading to making me profitable, making the business profitable or what actually like fulfilled me, like for what I want to do creatively, like with the book and other stuff. Cause before it was a lot of just doing random stuff or like jumping on podcast interviews that I didn't really want to do, or like, writing articles for people, like guest blogging on things I didn't really care about, or like just spending a lot of that precious time that I talked about, like doing stuff that wasn't actually adding to the bottom line of the business, furthering the business or furthering me in my own way. And so I cut out a lot of the nonsense and just really focused on a couple basic things and just getting that down. And so I think like, especially the last year and a half has been really successful and productive in that regard.
So you narrowed it down to like specific KPIs, things that you got to get done during your day. You're focusing on what matters. You got rid of all the crap that really isn't moving you forward. And we do that a lot. And there's a lot of opportunities to do it, right?
Yeah.
Because I work with entrepreneurs. Every one of them is like a new social media thing comes out. Should I be on TikTok? Should I be on Instagram TV? Should I be on Snapchat? Should I start a podcast? Right. That's another big one that comes up all the time. And I tell people, you got to focus your time on what's really going to have impact for you. Yeah. That might be starting a podcast, but for a lot of people, it's not. You know what I mean? Don't just start a podcast to start a podcast.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that was like one of the biggest problems for me. And it was really, if I had this same setup I had when I first started, I would have been successful 3 or 4 years ago. But it was a real problem for me, was just jumping around. And like you said, should I jump on TikTok? Should I go on Snapchat? Up until about a year and a half ago, I was posting on Twitter like almost every other day. And it's like, I wasn't getting any likes. I wasn't getting any follows. I didn't grow the Twitter. It was just like, oh, I have to be on Twitter, so I'm going to post all the time. Gary Vee said so 5 years ago that you have to be posting on, and it's like, it's fucking nonsense. It was just a waste of my time. It didn't lead to anything, and it wasn't growing the bottom line. It was a KPI, like you said, that just didn't make any damn sense, and I was wasting away time on that. I haven't posted on Twitter probably in a year or so because honestly, it's useless.
Yeah, absolutely. And it seems like along the way, you run into so many tools, so many strategies that you now deliver to your listeners and to your subscribers. It's things about health, things about sleep. I was listening to a podcast of yours a couple of weeks ago about optimizing sleep. You know, as you were coming along, did these things kind of pop up? Were they questions that your listeners were bringing to you, or were they things in your own life that you wanted to bring out?
I'd say probably half and half. Like some of the things people will ask me, I'll get questions on Instagram, you know, DMs or Facebook or in my Facebook group. A lot of them though are just from personal experience, like the sleep thing. I dealt with incredible insomnia and all these. I mean, I've had so many different crazy. I could go into a whole podcast of weird sleep symptoms and shit I've had for an hour. Like I've had the craziest sleep things of all time. But sleep things specifically, I mean, that was me. I've, you know, had anxiety in the past, depression in the past. I talk about those things a lot. You know, when I first started the podcast, it was a lot of the dating advice and then confidence issues. So I had a lot of different things I learned. So it's just basically me experiencing life, and along the way you bump into different things. And I've always had the mindset of like, I have to figure this out. I'm not just going to rely on trying to take some medication that the doctor, like I went for the sleep thing, for instance. I was getting sleep paralysis at one point. This was like 10 years ago, but you know, I've had other weird shit since then, but the sleep paralysis thing, I was getting it almost every night, and I got it for like 2 or 3 months straight. And it was like, you know, anyone who's had sleep paralysis is pretty damn scary.
Scary as shit. I've had it before.
Oh, dude, you know, then it's nuts. It's you wake up and all of a sudden you can't move, and like you're like awake and like trying to move around, but your body is completely shut down. You're paralyzed, hence the name, you know, paralysis. And sometimes you get like these buzzing sounds, these humming sounds. I would get like shotgun sounds in the back of my head, like a rifle went off or something, and just weird, crazy stuff like that. And then I'd get like insomnia related to that. But I went like 10 years ago, I went to the sleep doctor and did a bunch of sleep studies, and they didn't find anything in particular, but they were like, oh, you know, we don't know what to do with this. You know, you're obviously getting something, but we don't know what it is because we didn't see it on the, you know, EEG or whatever it's called. And they're like, oh, but here's a bunch of medication. I don't even know what the sleep medication is called, but it was, you know, Ambien or something, whatever it is, like the medication they prescribed. They tried to give me a bunch of that. And then they tried to give me some antidepressants to go along with that too, because they said the neurotransmitters might help, that they might balance out if I get on this antidepressant. So they didn't even know what I had. They didn't even know where it was coming from, why I was getting it. But they basically just said, here, take this. Let's see if it works. Hopefully it helps. Disregard all the side effects that accompany sleep medications and antidepressants. But here, you know, 18 years old kid, here's a bunch of medications, you know, good luck. So that wasn't going to work for me. It didn't sit well with me. And I knew that they weren't really having my best interest in mind. They were just basically checking off a number and trying to get to the next person. They didn't really, and it's, you know, it's not really their fault per se, but they have to deal with so many people throughout the day. They can't really be super invested in individuals. They're more about like getting through the line. Yeah. So, and that's just one experience. I've had so many different experiences. Same thing with depression and anxiety. Same thing with a bunch of other things. I've had migraines in the past. It's the same thing over and over again. And for me, it's like I have to figure out not only how to fix what I'm having, but why am I getting this in the first place? What's going on actually fundamentally inside my body and brain that's causing these different problems? And so going through stuff like that years ago kind of conditioned me to think a different way of like, I have to actually be in charge of my own health. I got to be in charge of myself. No one's going to save me. The doctors aren't going to save me. You know, although they may be good people, they don't have my best interests in mind in, you know, per se. I got to be in charge of what I'm going to do and put into my body and figure out exactly what's happening and how I can fix it. And so that's kind of my mentality. And it's been my mentality for probably the last decade or so. So anything pops up now, it's like, this is what I do. I have to figure out why it's happening and then how I can fix it. And it's always a natural approach to how I can fix this naturally. Because I believe when you put the body together and just figure out the imbalances of the body will heal itself.
Guys, I hope you're getting a lot out of this podcast with Justin Stenstrom. I just wanted to take a quick moment to talk to you about the Warriors Obituary Society. The Warriors Obituary Society is a group of men that are empowering each other to live their absolute best lives worthy of epic obituaries. It includes an 8-week development program up front that we use to help you to outline your vision, get really specific about what you want out of life, and then outline specific goals that you're going to work on. As a member of the group, you're going to have other members holding you accountable to those goals. And each week during the development program, we're going to be focusing on a different aspect of your life. Of course, we start with the vision, but then we go on to developing your own personalized and customized fitness and nutrition plan. Then we focus on your finances. We help you to knock down some of that debt and start an investment strategy so that you could start